Hello and welcome to another installment of Normal Live. This is going to be our federal update for the month. My name is Morgan Fox. I'm the political director for Normal, based in Washington D.C., and very glad for all of you to join us. Let's start off with the most recent developments. Just yesterday, Senate Majority Leader Schumer decided to hotline a bill that would uh, help to facilitate research for cannabis at the federal level and remove some of those barriers to research, to help to streamline production for research. Unfortunately, it did not include the measures in the House passed version that would have allowed researchers to be able to legally access products that are available on regulated state markets, which are what people are actually consuming, as opposed to the relative garbage that's being grown at the University of Mississippi right now. But overall, it would be a general plus for cannabis policy reform. And more importantly, symbolically, it would be the first standalone cannabis policy reform bill ever passed by both chambers of Congress. Now, Senate Majority Leader Schumer was nice enough to put this bill up for what's called unanimous consent, which means that as long as everybody agrees, it doesn't need a floor vote. It can just get passed right through the president's office with basically every member of the Senate saying this is fine. Unfortunately, Senator Cornyn from Texas decided to object to that measure and really throw a wrench into the works. So now we're not exactly sure when that bill will be able to come up for a vote. Uh, I am very hopeful that it will be able to come up before the midterm elections for a number of reasons. Chief among them being that um, a it would be really great to see some cannabis policy reform passed before the midterm elections to show the voters of this country that Congress can actually get something done on this very, very low hanging fruit that has broad bipartisan support, um, and really is something that's totally uncontroversial. Um, and secondly, because there is an incremental package of bills being considered for the lame duck session, which means that after the midterm elections take place, when Congress is basically running out the time before a new Congress takes over, and they have the opportunity to pass a number of things in the course of several weeks. And having this very, very popular research bill on the table kind of complicates this discussion. So hopefully we'll be able to find a way to get this passed with nearly unanimous consent in the Senate over the next few weeks before the midterm elections, and then we'll be able to move on after that to bigger fish. So let's talk about those bigger fish. Right now, there are really substantive negotiations happening in at the highest levels of Congress to pass a package of incremental reform that would be really groundbreaking in terms of what it could accomplish. Now we know that the ability to pass broad legislation like the MORE Act or CAOA is not going to happen this session. It's possible, but very, 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 very unlikely. In order to beat the filibuster in the Senate, we would need 60 votes. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't even think we have 50 Democrats, let alone the number of Republicans that we would need to be able to pass such broad and far reaching legislation that would effectively legalize cannabis at the federal level. However, there is significant appetite in both chambers to pass a package of incremental bills that combine things like safe banking with additional anti discrimination measures, with additional study measures attached to it that would determine the level of participation and fairness that is happening in the cannabis industry, coupled with things like federal funding for state level expungement, for veterans access and civil protections for veterans, for access for small cannabis businesses to Small Business Administration loans and funding programs, for things like Second Amendment protections for medical cannabis patients. So all of these things are really on the table right now. And there are more serious negotiations that I've seen in many years on the Hill in order to find the sweet spot of what will satisfy progressives in terms of a sort of comprehensive but limited package that will not alienate so many Republicans as to make it unpassable. And I am very optimistic that such an agreement can come to pass after the elections. Of course, there are going to be some hiccups involved in that. And that especially hinges on the outcome of the midterm elections. So if Democrats maintain control of both chambers, there really isn't a whole lot of motivation to pass this before the end of the session. If Republicans take control of both chambers, similarly, not a lot of motivation to pass this before the end of the session, and probably seeing a relative de-escalation of the cannabis issue, and or rather deprioritization of it, that could put reforms off for quite a few months. If one chamber, either upper or lower, changes, I think that we do have a really strong motivation among lawmakers to get something passed in the lame duck session. But I have to say, regardless of all these political machinations, that the fact that these conversations are even happening and at the very highest levels of Congress is really heartening to me as somebody who's been in this movement since 2008. We are farther along than we have ever been. We have more momentum than we have ever had. And the more that we can get passed as soon as possible, even if it's only half measures and small incremental steps, really positions us well for the next Congress, and also helps us to continue building momentum and public support among lawmakers. Which brings me to, I guess, my final point for this update, that the Brookings Institute recently released a study showing that the vast majority of politicians across the board and across parties have either taken no position or a relatively tepid public position on cannabis policy reform. And this is largely because, as I'm sure many of you know, support for cannabis policy reform and legalization in general, while being very strong, is a mile wide and an inch deep. When you talk to voters, cannabis policy is generally pretty far down the list on priorities, even among very, very strong supporters. And that means that politicians, both at the federal and state level, don't have a whole lot of motivation to prioritize the issue because they don't see their constituents really hammering them about it on a regular basis. And so, anybody that's listening, anybody that cares about this issue, this is something that we need to change. We need to hammer our politicians day in and day out to make sure that they know that this is an important issue that they should prioritize. It's an issue that is supported by the vast majority of Americans. It's an issue that only can help them politically, but we need to show them that not only can they be helped by supporting these issues and by prioritizing them and putting them higher up on the docket, that there are negative political consequences for inaction or obstruction when these things do come to the floor. And this goes across the board, both federal and state and local. So I highly recommend everybody reach out to their lawmakers and let them know that this is a priority issue for you, because that is the only way that we are going to be able to get politicians to really start answering to the will of the people and putting this issue higher up on the schedule of things that they need to consider. Um, and I think that that's very, very possible for us to do in the current session. But we absolutely need to make sure that that message is crystal clear as we move into the next session, so that regardless of what happens in the midterms, this issue does not go away. It doesn't peter out. We can keep maintaining and increasing our momentum towards sensible cannabis policy and making real substantive changes at the federal level, while we continue to see all sorts of changes at the state level. And hopefully, the midterms are going to yield us 5 new adult use states, at which point we will be in a much stronger position than we are right now to be able to force politicians' hands on Capitol Hill. That's pretty much it in terms of what's going on federally. Again, please go to normal.org/act in order to contact your lawmakers about a wide variety of issues. Please subscribe to our newsletters so that you can find out all the newest information coming out of Capitol Hill and what your members of Congress are doing. And absolutely make sure to register to vote. and go to vote.normal.org so you can see our Smoke the Vote ratings for lawmakers and lawmaker candidates in your individual districts, as well as for your federal lawmakers, so that we can put people into office that actually care about this issue and are willing to put it at the forefront of the issues that they're considering. So that's pretty much it for me today. Everybody have a good weekend. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to policy@normal.org or look on the website for our individual contact information. Please feel free to give me a call. My door is always open. Uh, Looking forward to hearing from you, and keep fighting. Thanks, everybody.